but we actually owned a PS2. My mom made a deal with me and my sisters that we all agreed that we wanted a PS2. And and my mom made a deal with us and said if we all sacrificed our birthday presents, that we'd go to Walmart right then and there. I think it was in the middle of the summer or something like that. And and she would buy us all a PS2. So so we agreed.
Welcome back to Bar City episode 98. I'm Eric.
I'm Kevin.
Well, happy technically late fourth for everyone. It's just for us, it's the day after. By
Yeah.
the time you're listening to it, it's already been long gone. Um, so we are on. Are we doing a sixth gen part two, or is it going to be seventh gen now?
Yeah, definitely a sixth gen part two. So
All righty. I'll let
there's
Kevin kick it off.
yeah, I kind of had a feeling like we'd have a part two at least to a sixth gen
Hmm.
because there's just you know so many games to still left to talk about, just the games alone, and I don't even feel like we necessarily touched on all the technology per se. So we touched on a decent amount of it, but there's still a few things we can
Oh
mention.
yeah, there's still a lot. Yeah, we basically did mostly last episode. We basically just did our experiences and some of the stuff and some over some games.
Yeah,
Kind of backwards from the last time from Gen 5.
yeah,
Because Gen 5, we went heavily first into the tech and then our experience with the tech.
yeah, yeah. Part two in Gen 5, I think we told mostly personal
Mhm.
stories, if I remember correctly. So
So if you want to hear it, but what do you want to?
I got kind of a couple of things pulled up.
All right, this
I
with it.
was kind Yeah, I was kind of curious what people's like. I did a little bit of research not like a lot, but I did a little bit of research for this episode, and I was
Mhm.
kind of curious what people's like in general. It's not now, keep in mind, this is not an exact science. It's not like I counted, like a tally or anything. But I was kind of curious what most people's like favorite games were from this generation, both like, and I'm assuming this is a mix of like people that grew up in this generation, like right around the same age as me and Eric, or and a mix of people that might be older and a mix of people that may have played some of these games later, sort of like what me and Eric talked about in the previous generations as playing and generations really technically before our time. So it makes me feel old to think about, but there are technically people younger than us that look at this generation the same way that we look at some of the older generations, and but still can find a lot of games that they find enjoyable. So out of it, and I did kind of a loose tally of and like people mentioning games. The most common games I found that people mentioned were the was Final Fantasy X. That one was mentioned a crap ton, and I don't know, like all the different. Like I said, this is a mix of like Reddit votes and like top tens and other forums and stuff like that I looked through, and
Yeah.
uh, and Final Fantasy X was definitely a high mentioned one. Halo 1 and 2 were mentioned a
Mhm.
lot, like a lot. And the both Zelda Twilight Princess and the Wind Waker were mentioned a bunch. So and let's see, what were
Yeah.
the other ones? Of course, Shadow Colossus was mentioned a lot. Knights of the Old
Mhm.
Republic 1 and 2 were mentioned a bunch. So but probably the games uh oh, Kingdom Hearts 2 was mentioned a lot. Mhm. which I don't even
I
think we
mean,
mentioned Kingdom Hearts 2 in the last episode.
no,
Eh,
I didn't mention any of the Kingdom Hearts last episode because I was kind of going earlier than that for a little bit. And
yeah,
also, realistically, Kingdom Hearts, if you're a Final Fantasy fan in general, or a
yeah.
Disney fan on top of that, like it doesn't need Olympic coach. It's literally the best of all worlds.
Yeah, I guess it is fair to say there's probably a huge portion of people that don't really even identify like Kingdom Hearts, particularly Kingdom Hearts 2, as like sixth gen game. And what I mean by that is they don't view it as like it's stuck in that era kind of thing. Sort of like the Skyrim effect too. There's so many
Hmm.
people that still view Skyrim as a modern day game, even though it's a seventh generation game. And
Oh
but
no, it's a
they don't.
six. It's
Huh?
six. It's six.
Skyrim? No, it's a seventh generation.
Is it?
Yeah.
So I could have swore it was on the sixth. Oh yeah, it's
No.
next gen.
Yeah. And so it's
Yeah.
sort of like, I'd feel like Kingdom Hearts 2 is probably in that same sort of effect.
Well, probably because
But
Kingdom Hearts 2 came out so late in PS2 era.
yeah, well sort of. Yeah, see that's one of the weird things about the sixth generation too. You could also argue about the seventh generation as well. Is like
It's stayed around too
it's
long.
yeah, it since there's so much spillover with the sixth generation, there's some games that technically are sixth gen games, but don't really feel like it, but at the same time they also do. It's really of course this is all based on how I feel about it. Everyone else may have
Well, I
different
mean,
feelings
you can see
about
it
where things
today.
yeah, where the spillover happens. So
Because I mean, that's why they actually have to now actually make. I think it's this gen and the next within sixth and seventh gen. They started doing the whole uh releasing a game because it's so later in the gen
yeah.
twice just to have it on the next generation of consoles.
Yeah.
Just I remember seeing the especially when the Xbox One came out and was going to PS3 and PS4 from in 360 to Xbox One. And the
Yeah.
whole like, oh, you have a 360 version of this game. Now you have the Xbox One version of this game. A PS4 version of it, you know.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, it's got because technically the seventh generation gets its start in 2006, but the sixth generation just feels like it's a long, excuse me, it just feels like it's long from being over at that point of time. It just still feels like there's so much gaming. I think one reason why I feel this way, and I'm sure other people feel the same, um, is there's some like me personally, like I mentioned in the last episode that like the PS2 I started playing it I think when I was like 11-ish years old, some give or take, a year. Uh but it wasn't actually our PS2. We were just using it because of that situation. But we actually owned a PS2. My mom made a deal with me and my sisters that we all agreed that we wanted a PS2. And and my mom made a deal with us and said if we all sacrificed our birthday presents, that we'd go to Walmart right then and there. I think it was in the middle of the summer or something like that. And she would buy us all a PS2. So and so we agreed. And but keep in mind, it was already like I think like 2000, like late 2006 by this point. If my memory serves me correctly. So technically the seventh generation is already getting its start, and and I was already playing the PS2 after we got it for like several years there. Like I was 18 years old still playing on the PS2, and I hadn't even started technically the seventh generation yet. So that's why you can see where those lines can really get blurred, where it really doesn't feel like the seventh generation gets started for me until like 2008. But
yeah.
technically it started before that. So, so sometimes when I think of Kingdom Hearts 2 or any games that came around that time, I kind of think of it as a game that came out like in the middle of the sixth generation, but that's actually not true. It came out toward the end. And it's kind of weird how same thing with some of the Grand Theft Auto games. So uh it feels like they came out like sort of in the middle for me, like with with Vice City and San Andreas, but technically San Andreas came out toward the end. And but yeah, and that was another commonly mentioned one too, where the Grand Theft Auto games, all three of them actually were mentioned. Even though most people consider Grand Theft Auto 3 kind of a poorly aged game, there's still quite a few people that have, probably because of nostalgia though, that that still talk about it a lot and mentioned it as one of their favorite, games from the sixth generation. So, but definitely San Andreas is probably mentioned the most for most people.
Well, just for
So
most people, like San Andreas is the definitive GTA of this generation.
yeah,
It was the most popular. It had the better graphics at the time.
yeah.
Uh, and
Also
a
a
better storyline.
bigger map too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Vice City was small comparatively, but also
yeah,
San Andreas is based off California, so
yeah,
uh, specifically, Los Angeles.
yeah, yeah. San Andreas, to me, San Andreas, I mean, this is not exactly a controversial opinion because there's other people that I've heard say this too. And this could just be an example of my age. But to me, San Andreas is still the definitive Grand Theft Auto game. The reason why I say that,
Mhm.
even though I'm aware that Grand Theft Auto 4 and 5, like they have better graphics, the controls are better depending on your definition of better controls. And But I still consider San Andreas better, mostly because of how the missions work. To me, San Andreas has a much more variety of missions
Mhm.
than what you do. Like some missions, you're doing more like driving and exploring. Some of them, you're doing a variety of other things that are kind of fall in the category of mini games, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
Uh, and then there's games where you're doing a decent amount of shooting. But I just feel like since shooting games got more and more popular in the seventh and eighth generation, by the time you get to like Grand Theft Auto 5, like literally every mission is like shoot, shoot, shoot. I mean, the first mission you do is literally a shooting mission. And
actually,
it's
no. The
like
first mission you do is a racing mission. Oh no, we're talking about.
Grand Theft Auto 5.
Dude, literally, and this is what's gonna probably piss anybody off that's listening that is a GTA 5 fan. I don't like GTA 5. I've never actually played the main story except for literally to get out of the tutorial so I can access online.
Yeah. I like GTA 5. I'm just not a big fan of the missions. It's fun to drive around and just like cause, mayhem for me. But I just never, because there's entirely too many shooting missions. But of course, we can talk more about that later. But San Andreas to me feels like that sweet spot. And that's why I feel like it's definitive.
Yeah.
It's still fun to drive around the city. Yes, I know some concepts in that game are a little dated, but it's still a lot of fun to drive around the city, and it's and free play, as some people would have called it back then. And then but it's also, for me, it's still fun to do the missions because there's still more variety and
There is
stuff
only
there.
one mission in that game I fucking hated.
Yeah, well, all
That's
games I could
chasing
probably.
that is chasing down the fucking train.
Yeah, I vaguely even remember that mission, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely some missions in San Andreas I'm not really a fan of, but
Well,
you
the thing
do
is,
that
and it's not
mission and then
it's
you
it's
move
mainly
on.
because how big
So
of a bitch it was to do.
yeah.
The mission was good, it's just it was a fucking cunt.
Yeah, with sandbox games in particular, I feel like it's best if you shoot for more variety type missions because see, if you don't like this type of mission, well, you only have to do it a number of times, and there's other missions that you're probably going to enjoy versus where you're throwing all your eggs in one basket, like I feel like Grand Theft Auto 5 does, where where you're just doing too much of the same thing over and over again.
Yeah.
And now, some genres can get away with that because that's the name of the game. That's the type of genre you're playing. But with a sandbox game, it's one of those weird, tricky things. Maybe this is just my opinion. Other people may disagree with me, but it's one of those weird, tricky things where I feel like it needs to have that variety there, because of the type of game it is. And because it's never Grand Theft Auto never really originally intended to do like one thing really good. It did a lot of little things like really good that adds up to one really fun game to play. So and in my opinion, I just feel like that changes later. But you know, there might be people listening right now fully disagreeing with me, and that's fair. So but yeah, anyway, that's my rant about me bowing down and praising San Andreas versus so
Yeah. So,
versus yeah.
but we're still. I don't know, when it comes to gaming in this generation, to talking about this generation and the next generations, there is too much. Um, we would actually so because again, we want I could talk about length about any of the Final Fantasies in this era, any of
Oh
the
man, yeah.
Kingdom Hearts in this era,
Yeah.
GTA, Crash Bandicoot's still great in this era, in my opinion. Jack Dexter in this era.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's got Jack 1 through 3 is this era.
Yep. And all three of them are very praised, games by a number of
Uh,
people. So
Ratchet and Clank.
yeah.
Jesus Christ, there's so many good games this era. The next era has good games, but honestly, most of the games now, I still pay attention to a lot of like games throughout the years.
Yeah.
A lot of them either are just enhancing the graphics and doing something that another game's already done. Some of them are doing some cool stuff, but most of that is small indie companies on PC. Console for a while there it seemed like it was just trying to do the big AAA shooter stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like the sixth generation kind of go again. This is all based on my opinion and my own personal feeling, but I also feel like the kind of like what I said earlier about variety with Grand Theft Auto. I also feel like the generation as a whole with the sixth generation has that same variety feeling.
Hmm.
It's hard for me to name that one genre that defines the sixth generation because there's so many great games with a variety of genres
Yeah,
versus the fifth generation where yes, there's a lot of other great games out there, other genres, but most people like the fourth and fifth generation, they think of platformers because those were the main like king of that generation. But the sixth generation, yeah, there's still a lot of really fun platformers, but they're not quite as popular in this generation. Other genres are stepping
unless
up
you're
and
on, unless you're still on like Nintendo at the time, because like most
yeah,
Nintendo
yeah.
stays
But even
platformers.
yeah, even Nintendo though has like Metroid Prime, they
Hmm.
got the and yeah. So, but yeah, I definitely agree. There's still, I would still, and of course, the Zelda games, are on Nintendo. But yeah, definitely a lot of platformers still. But yeah, and
But yeah.
obviously in the beginning of the sixth generation, I mostly still played platformers. I was still treating the sixth generation like the fifth generation 2.0, basically for me personally. But that changes in the later half of the sixth generation where I played Jack 2 basically. Jack 2 is sort of like my gateway game into playing more mature games. And because when I was a kid, like I was never really interested in mature stuff in general, mature uh movies with the exception of action movies. I wasn't really interested in mature movies. I wasn't interested in mature series or shows. And the same thing with games. Most mature games just didn't look all that appealing to me. But that changes when I played Jack 2. It sort of eases me into a more mature library of games, and that's when I started getting interested in other uh, games in the second half of the sixth generation, and as it leads into the seventh generation. But yeah,
Yeah, I know for me, this generation, the yeah, granted, the consoles now do way more shit. They're better, blah blah blah.
yeah,
But again, I mean, uh, when you talk about Nintendo, like this is also Nintendo's big party era. Like you got
yeah,
Mario Party, you got this and that, like the whole But I know PlayStation, of course, technologically wise, there's not anything really to heavily talk about except for the introduction of the discs. And with Sony with their whole DVD player included stuff.
Yeah.
Because we're now in an era, in my opinion, somebody else might have a different opinion than me, but this era is still basically everything we do now, just enhanced.
Right. Just better graphics and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
because there's not much you can really do from what we started with this era with the, discs and DVD players, and I guess eventually introduce the built-in router stuff, so you don't have to hook it to your router. You can do
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, but
Mm.
the internet connection started in this era thanks to Xbox because they hadn't actually gotten to do it very well before. Xbox is the one who continued that, started that into it, and then PS3, of course, hit the gear in the next gen. But uh, I'm trying to think on the technology because, like, I know the CD-ROM. Xbox had where you could download songs to it.
Yeah, they did.
I forgot about that. That's one
Yep.
feature.
And you can
Honestly,
incorporate in certain games too. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the thing I actually am mad about. They got rid of in the later gens.
Yeah.
That kind of annoyed me. They got rid of that in later gens. It
Yeah.
was such a great idea, and they got rid of it.
Yeah. Yeah, San Andreas is actually an example of that, where I think all the Grand Theft Auto games you can do it actually on the Xbox. Where if you download music on there, when you listen to the radio in your car, like you can play that music in your car. It's pretty cool. So,
Another,
there's other games that do that too.
but also this is also a year that GTA gets first true competitor, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that was another thing I was going to talk about with the sixth generation is this is also a generation of sandbox games in general, or what some people deem as Grand Theft Auto clones, where there's a bunch of games that came out competing with Grand Theft Auto. Some were amazing, some not so much.
To me,
So
the only one that really rivaled GTA for the longest time until like I think it's like the seventh or eighth gen that they kind of fell off to me,
yeah,
and that's the Saints Row's games.
yeah, Saints Row, yeah. Yeah, my friend, when I was in high school, my friend, he was really into, which he liked Grand Theft Auto too. We played San Andreas all the time together, but he was also a huge like Saints Row fan.
Yeah, I became a good fan of it, especially with Saints Row the Third.
Yeah,
Um, Also, it's a game that made me love a specific concept that doesn't happen in games. Because like with Xbox's thing, it's because it was downloaded onto the account and onto the Xbox, and it could do certain things with the music. But then you got Saints Row, which you couldn't do that, but they had such a library of songs, and you could make your own playlist out of the songs on the radio of all the songs they had access to in the game. So
yeah,
you didn't have to like listen to a specific station just to get one song. You could just add that song to your personal playlist and play that through the game in the vehicle.
yeah,
So that was a cool concept in the game system.
yeah.
Now,
Agreed.
now a lot of the tech of this generation, to me again, because there's not really much that had to be done console wise in this era, was mostly game mechanics to me.
Yeah,
Because there was a lot of games that had such interesting mechanics that no other game had.
yeah,
So I don't feel like we're explaining this era very well. this time. I think we did better the last episode.
You don't think?
Ah. Uh, but
You, yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I
Game,
have a
oh, game mechanics, is that what you're mentioning? Yeah.
yeah. I'm trying to think of because there's a lot of games started the survival mechanics
Yeah. That
started
definitely
this
gets more
era.
popular in the seventh generation too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff that gets kind of its start in this era, but gets more popularized in later in later generations.
Hmm.
Mm. Yeah, I if correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this might be the introduction. This might be the generation that introduces like the whole hack and slash concept. I don't
Uh,
remember any
I
games in the
mean,
fifth generation doing that, do they?
so
Or some people refer to them as button mashers, where you're just mashing one button a lot.
yeah. Well, the hash and slash games. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. Devil May Cry is literally one of the grandfathers of hack and slash.
Yeah, Devil May Cry, of course, God of War is a pretty big one.
Hmm. I
You
mean,
could argue, yeah, Kingdom
technically,
Hearts is kind of a hack and slash technically.
yeah.
So,
I mean, you're looking at like, hell, oh, what was it? So now there's Devil May Cry. There's the prototype games. There's the Infamous games. Um,
yeah,
well, Infamous one because I think two came out in the next gen. I mean, technically, you have some of that. Kind of was a thing in like Shinobi and Rastin and Golden Axe back in the '80s in the 2D style,
yeah,
but yeah, mostly. I mean, Devil May Cry is the first modern 3D slasher genre game. It was the established by it. So, uh, but did you know it was initially designed as a prototype for Resident Evil 4?
uh,
Yeah.
hack and
Devil May
slash.
Cry. Don't Devil May Cry itself was a prototype for Resident Evil 4.
Oh, really? No, I never knew that.
Yep. But it blew up, so it became its own thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah,
could see that.
it is the grandfather of our modern day slashers, hack and slash games.
Yeah,
So, I mean, pull up my list of stuff, see if I have some stuff on my list about it.
yeah. I pulled up a list about the history of hack and slash. This page is mentioning it sort of like and I could see it. I could see it. Sort of like in an evolution in beat 'em up games, because like
Yeah.
there's beat 'em up and it's hack and slash is sort of like. But I don't know. I feel like hack and slash. Maybe it's because it's in 3D. Maybe I don't know. But I just
Well,
feel like
hack
hack
and
and slash
slash,
games are more fun than beat 'em up games. So
yeah, because hack and slash games have more better movement, in my opinion, sometimes. Until recently, I mean, beat 'em up games now can be just as good.
yeah, yeah. I mean, beat 'em up games. I'm not saying they don't have their place. I've just never been a fan, really. But I like hack and slash games, so if especially if they're done really well. So
But for the listeners that are very big nerds, like, more in the technological nerd aspect, I'm like, I do have a list of everything each console brought to the table in this era.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I made sure to bring that up. Um, so the Sega Dreamcast, it featured a built-in 56K modem for basic internet browsing and online play. It was the first to do that. Xbox continued it better, in my opinion. It was powered by a 200 megahertz Hitachi SH4 CPU and a NEC Power VR2 GPU and used proprietary GD-ROM disc. So I mean, the Sega Dreamcast brought it, and it sucks that that's the one that they ended on because they brought it with that one.
Yeah.
And then Sony on their PlayStation 2, which is the best-selling console of all time, utilized the highly complex custom 294 megahertz Emotion Engine CPU.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, alongside the graphics synthesizer, it moved gaming fully into the DVD-ROM era and allowed for backwards compatibility with PS1. This is also your backwards compatibility
Yeah.
start. I mean, and Nintendo GameCube had a few things. I mean, they had a custom IBM powered PC with it was called Gekko
Hmm.
CPU, and an ATI Flipper GPU. It was a compact powerhouse instead of full size discs, as we know. It used proprietary 1.5 gigabyte mini DVDs to prevent piracy and reduce loading times, which it only lasted a year.
Yeah. Yeah. I never thought about it being like making shorter loading times. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Making the disc smaller. I never really thought about that before. That's interesting.
Yep.
So of course it probably makes less space on there, but maybe Nintendo felt like they didn't need the extra space. I don't know. Maybe it didn't have less space.
Well, I mean,
So,
it's literally a 1.5 gigabyte mini disc.
yeah.
So, but
Yeah, I
also
guess in
games
those
back then, you got to calculate. Most games back then were maybe a few gigs to
oh
like
yeah, they didn't.
most games that we
Some of them
played.
didn't even reach gigs. They were still
Yeah,
in the megabytes.
like
Yeah.
every game, even indie games, mostly nowadays are at least 1 gig. So most indie games are about the same size as what we used to have. And a
Yeah.
lot of times, in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion. Lately, I've been finding them better.
Uh, games from
Uh,
older
indie
games?
groups, indie
Oh,
groups.
from indie groups, yeah. Oh, you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people that feel that way. And we can talk more about that when we get to the,
Oh
later
yeah.
generations. So, mm,
But anyways,
yeah.
and Microsoft's Xbox when they first came in, they forayed into consoles. Featured a 733 hertz Intel Pentium 3 CPU. Of course, it's got to be Intel, their PC company,
Yeah.
and an NVIDIA
Hmm.
NV2A GPU. I know I'm probably
Yeah.
butchering the way it says it because like I never know the correct pronunciation to
Mhm.
technology. I know what they are
Yeah.
when
That's
I
the way
read
I would
them.
pronounce it. NVIDIA. Yeah.
Some people pronounce things weird when they do the stuff, but hey, I'm not that technical smart guy. I'm not good with words. It was technology outlier, functioning largely like a pre-built PC by featuring a built-in Ethernet port and a standard 8 gigabyte internal hard disk drive,
Yeah. Which was
HDD.
a lot back then. Way more than that needed to
Yeah,
be.
literally considering, I mean, that would be at least probably like 8 to 20 games, depending on the game.
Yeah.
If you really think about it, even gigabytes have hit inflation.
Yeah. Yeah, because 1 gigabyte is of course like nothing now, but yeah.
Yeah.
But back then, 1 gig was, I remember when people like, just as a side note, real quick, I
Hmm.
remember back when people would, first started bringing like USB sticks around with them,
Yeah.
and I remember when like a USB having like just 2 or 3 gigs was a lot, people would brag about that.
Dude, I
Like,
remember
oh,
getting
it's
excited when
got
they
three
released
gigs on it.
this. I remember they got so excited they released a 16 gigabyte USB. I'm like, I could do so fucking much on this.
Like, geez, that's a lot. Yeah.
Like, I still have one of those old 16 gig ones, and it's got the profile for my 360 save of Skyrim with one of the most OP fucking Skyrim characters I've ever made.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I found I had to talk about this when we get to that generation, but I found an item that I don't think is still in the game.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I haven't found it ever again.
Oh, that's interesting. Like maybe when they did it in a patch update or something.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You'll have to tell more about that when we get to it.
yeah.
So,
But the key technological breakthroughs of that era, I mean, of course, online gaming, which Sega pioneered and Xbox Live truly standardized. Because you have, of course, matchmaking and voice chat, which everything has nowadays.
oh yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
was a new concept in this generation.
And only Sega and Xbox was doing it.
Yep. Of course, Xbox popularized it more because they were a
Yeah.
more successful console,
I
especially in the later
mean,
half.
not
So,
only that, I mean, you gotta think when they made Halo multiplayer.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
Halo, like playing online, like made revolutionized so much. So,
and this, of course, we had the internal storage and patching because the original Xbox included a hard drive, eliminated the need for cumbersome external memory cards. God, I remember memory cards, the PS2. That's
yeah.
another thing, finding a memory card that had a big ass fucking space for memory to play. There's so many games. You had four slots and I remember having almost at least two to three of them constantly with filled and just swapping the memory cards.
I think I only had two, but that I am one of those people. I do the same thing on my PC as well. I'm one of those people like if I'm not actively playing a game a lot, I usually will like remove it. I would do the
Um,
same thing like with my saves. I know some gamers are probably like script like you removed your save. Like, yeah, I really
yeah,
did. I would
that
just
I'm a
clear mine
little
off.
against you on. That I'm a little
Yeah.
against you on. Like,
And I do the same thing now on PC. Like I'll uninstall the game if I'm not actively playing it all that much. So.
I
Mhm.
will say this was the era of my sticky fingers. So, and I learned exactly how to go into Walmart and how to get a hold of these memory cards and take them to the bathroom, get around the cameras and all this. So did have a collection of stolen memory cards for the PS2.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yep, and a bunch of stolen Game Boy Advance game. I was a little shit then.
Wow.
Um, Five finger discount, brother. That's what you gotta do when you're poor sometimes.
Yeah. Well, I was poor and I never did that, but yeah.
Hey. Damn, call me out. I was poor. I didn't do that shit, motherfucker. What the fuck's wrong with you then?
Well, I
Damn.
just didn't
Okay.
want people to throw me in that category too. I'm like, no, 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 no. Yeah. But yeah, anyway, get back on topic.
Uh, but
Yeah,
yeah.
the since you're talking about the engine stuff, one side note I was going to mention that a lot of people don't may not know that may have not played both PS2 and Xbox.
Mhm.
There if a game like if you're starting a collection and you want to buy both consoles, if you get a game that's both available on PS2 and Xbox, and this is coming from a PS2 fanboy, get the Xbox version. It'll run so much faster and
Yep.
smoother because of the fact that the Xbox has the built-in hard drive and stuff, and of course has more RAM and everything. It runs
Uh,
like so much fast. Like Grand Theft Auto
mhm.
San Andreas, you remember those long ass loading times you'd
Mhm.
have to wait through on the PS2? Sit there and wait for. Of course, back then we had more patience, but nowadays I couldn't even imagine sitting through all that shit. But like it's not like a problem at all on Xbox. It loads right up. So,
Well, I
like,
mean, that
definitely get
also,
the Xbox version. That's what I'm
I mean, you
telling
also got
you.
to count with the Xbox at this time. And I mean, it literally, yeah, and you didn't have the cumbersome external memory cards for save files. It
Right.
also allowed for game caching and the downloadable content. They started the
Yep.
downloadable content
Yep.
because you could connect to the internet and get patch updates to the game and
Right.
get new shit in this. With PS2, you had to go buy the DLC, or hell, I remember having to buy a whole new game version of a game because it came out with DLC, or there
Yeah.
was a DLC discs. I can't remember.
Yeah, DLC was a little less common on PS2 because I think it was, just kind of a pain to deal with. But yeah, definitely on Xbox. Yeah, simple concept. Same thing with the friggin' there was some DLC on some games on the Dreamcast. So
Hmm. And
yeah,
of course, all of them had a visual, was, visually enhancements. I mean, that's straight across the board. I mean,
yeah,
hardware advancement introduced, programmable pixel shaders, anisotropic filtering, and bump mapping, which resulted in richer environments and complex lighting far beyond what fifth generation consoles could ever achieve.
yeah,
Like, that's the stuff, and that stuff right there is literally the similar things that we still use today, just upgraded,
yeah,
in my opinion. I mean, of course, they probably do little new things here and there, but for the most part, this right here is just what you got now, except for way more enhanced.
yeah. No, I agree. I feel like most of the thing, like games and mechanics and stuff like that, we have today, really, honestly, they were already doing in the sixth generation, just maybe not as expanded upon or improved upon, but mostly just because of
Hmm.
limitation of hardware. Obviously, developers wanted to make bigger worlds and make more movie-like games, but just the hardware was limited. But now they can do those things. But that being able to enhance graphics and make bigger worlds doesn't necessarily um revolutionize gaming. It's just you're making them more and more improved upon what we've already gotten.
Hmm.
So but yeah, the sixth generation in my opinion is probably the last generation where we were like, wow, like new mechanics,
Yeah,
new
like
systems introduced.
graphics have wowed me.
Yeah,
Some new mechanics in games specifically, yes.
yeah,
Again, from this generation on, in my opinion, the most like wow thing is gaming specifically.
yeah,
Consoles have done some really cool stuff. I mean, mostly, Nintendo with the Switch, and then of course some of the added features that's come about because of, the advancement of the tech. And a lot of that is mostly like company side too. Like whatever the company decides, like if Xbox added this kind of thing to their console, that's their menu wise or their special packages with the Game Pass and shit. That's
yeah.
mostly where I'm wild at. Uh Seeing like a high depth, almost realistic graphics to me anymore is just like, eh.
Yeah, it's not quite as wowing as it used to be. I think the last generation where I was extremely wowed by graphics was probably the seventh generation. I'm not saying I wasn't wowed at all on the eighth and ninth, but
Mhm.
I'm just saying like that was the last one where I was like, wow, that literally looks like a movie. And I just haven't really felt that same extreme like since then, really.
Yeah. I'm
And
literally trying to rack my brain.
yeah,
Like I might find some stuff that I was like, oh yeah, that I remember that once we get into the next gens because I'm not trying to think too heavily on them. But
yeah,
right off the top of my head, I there's nothing after this that really fully wowed me that wasn't game side.
yeah,
Because there's
agreed.
game mechanics in this era and all the way to now that I've seen, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
And that's just because, I mean, we probably could have done it back then. It's just not as good.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like, obviously, developers were already thinking of those ideas. They just, there were some things they just literally couldn't do because of limitation of hardware. So, and now they can do those things. So,
Yep.
or do what they were already doing, but make improve upon it, basically.
I mean,
S-
again, the next era introduces Skyrim.
yeah,
There's a mechanic that Skyrim does that I have seen altered, enhanced, or stayed the same in multiple fucking games. Their
yeah.
lock picking system.
Oh God. Yeah.
Now, we'll get definitely more than that when we get into the next gen, but
Yeah.
that's basically how it is. Is nowadays it's mostly game client side, not console side.
Yeah.
Of course, the
Yeah. So
consoles are impressive because they had to upgrade to be able to do that stuff. But that's more they're updating their processors, their CPU, all that.
Yeah.
less now making, because with this gen introducing into the 3D era, which is we're still in 3D. I mean, we're never gonna not be in 3D except for maybe some retro style games go back to pixel, and that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
But we're already at the max era of like design in a sense, because of now it's just making them sharper. Like when you start counting the stubble on a person's face in a game, you kind of, I don't know if you can really get any further than that, except for sharpening
Yeah.
it up a little bit or making the game run faster and smoother.
Yeah.
But again, that's still just hard drive.
Yeah. Yeah, since we're talking about like hardware and technical stuff, I pulled up a little list here that I thought might be kind of fun.
Okay.
These are a list of some games that push the hardware, I put that in quotes, push the hardware and on the PS2. And when I say that, like I mean like the developers had to do because of the limited hardware. Especially so because some of these games are in the later half of the sixth generation. Where the developers had to do like maybe some weird programming or to get around some kind of thing and
Hmm.
so one is San Andreas, of course, and they said mostly because of the map size, they had to do some strange programming to make the loading screens and stuff like that work with the bigger map. And of course, like we just mentioned, on the PS2, it's infamous. San Andreas, in particularly, is infamous for like a long booting up screen. Like when you put the game in, you're sitting there for like ever for the game to
Oh, I
start.
mean, not just
Yeah.
that. If you count the loading screen stuff, I mean, the Tenkaichis and Budokai Tenkaichi, they literally had to make a mini game because it was so long. They made a mini
I
game
forgot
for loading.
about that. There is a mini game
Yeah.
in those. Yeah. Yeah, I used to have so much fun playing that little mini game. But anyway, uh, it's kind of funny that I had so much fun with that, and I forgot all about that. But yeah, mostly though, when it comes to the open world aspect of San Andreas, they had to do some weird programming for the loading screens. Devil May Cry 3, mostly they said mostly when it came to the animations and stuff like that, and some of the cutscenes, they had to do some weird programming and stuff to kind of get around some of the limitations, pushing the hardware. This is a game, JRPG I have not played yet, but I really want to. It looks really fun. I really need to get around to playing it, but I have a long friggin' backlog of games that I'm still like. Lord knows if I'll even get to some of them. But Rogue Galaxy, um,
I played a
it
little bit of that.
yeah, it looks really fun to me. I've never played it, but they said mostly when it comes to some of the says cell shaded art style,
Hmm.
because it has that particular art style. This was, I don't think it was the first one, was it? But it was one of the first that did that kind of art style where they had to do some weird programming to make some of the stuff work on this type of hardware.
I think
Uh,
Borderlands had to do that too.
yeah, probably. God of War 2, they said mostly when it comes to the animations and some of the cutscenes and stuff, they had to do some weird programming
Hmm.
to get it to work.
Since you mentioned God of War, there's something I actually want to bring up in this era that started, and I love it. I will always love this mechanic in gaming
Okay.
because God of War has it. Quick time events.
Quick time events. My brain's in a fog. I
So remember,
know
like
what
in
that
God of
means.
War, like when or any game that has quick time events, when something happens, you have to hit the right button at the right time or smash the
Oh
button real
yeah,
quick.
yeah, yeah.
Those are
I knew
quick time
that
events.
phrase sounded familiar, and I couldn't place what it was.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
This is the era of quick time events starting too.
yeah. Yeah, I never thought about that. I'm actually there are some games that do quick time events that I enjoy. Actually, God of War, I would say, is sort of an exception. I actually enjoy the quick time events in that game. But some games maybe they're just not executing it very well, but some games I actually find the quick time events to be kind of boring. So
Hmm.
uh or too gamey. So it feels like it reminds me too much that I'm literally playing a video game and not exploring a world. But um Final Fantasy 12, of course, with its open world feature, Final Fantasy X, of course, being a bit more of a linear game. So since that was the first one on the PS2, they had to like, play it a bit safer with that game. But then, of course, by the time they got up to 12, and they had their experience with the MMO of the Final Fantasy 11, they expanded the map a little bit, making it bigger, and they had to do some kind of again, some weird stuff to kind of make it happen. And then Shadow of Colossus, same thing, open world. I think some of the animations and stuff like that, they had to push it a little bit. One game series in particular, which we've mentioned multiple times on the podcast, because it's one of my favorite game series of all time. I know uh, the Jak and Daxter series. Naughty Dog, when they were switching over, they switched over to Sony directly because they used to work for
Hmm.
Universal Interactive back in the fifth generation. That's the reason why they can't make Crash Bandicoot games anymore because they don't own that series, that IP. But when they switched over to Sony directly, and they actually really didn't have a story idea or like anything. Like when they approached the PS2, they were calling it Project Y, and their main goal was they wanted to make a more open-ended game that had no loading screens. That was their main goal with what eventually became Jak and Daxter. And they so like in Jak and Daxter, the way Naughty Dog did it was they did had to do some weird programming. Like Andy Gavin, the co leader of the group at the time, he made the engine himself for Jak and Daxter, the Cry engine. Or not Cry engine, but that's a different engine. Anyway, what do I say? Anyway, he made the engine for Jak and Daxter, the same engine that the Ratchet and Clank games use. They let Insomniac Games borrow that engine for Ratchet and Clank, and he had to do some weird programming with the engine, and most of the developers and programmers never had used an engine before like this before. It was very unique, and Andy Gavin had to literally stand over him and like kind of teach him step by step on like what to do and everything because of how weird it was. And one of the things they did for the loading times was the way you kind of the way the game it's open ended in an area, but then when you're going to another area, it kind of sort of becomes a bit more linear and becomes a bit more pathway. And the reason why it's doing that is just because that's where it's loading in the new area, but it's doing it in real time,
Hmm.
instead of like hitting a loading screen. It's doing it. And so as you're walking from like Sandover Village over to like Sentinel Beach, you'll notice that you go through this little sort of like a little mini tunnel thing, as you're walking, and it's a more of a narrow path. That's where the Sentinel Beach is loading in when you're walking through there. Jak 2, they do the exact same thing. There's a reason why they made Haven City so loopy and swervy and curvy. It's because of the loading screens. Each little section of that city is a different map that they've just sort of glued together. And
Hmm.
as you're looping around a corner and stuff like that, it's loading in the next area. And same thing, of course, when you get on like the those where the door in Jak 2, where the doors open and close as it's loading into an outer area, that it's also loading in real time on that too. So it's more or less it's kind of a fancy loading screen really, but it doesn't feel like one because of the way they designed it. So but
Yeah,
yeah, I just thought
it's
it'd
an
be a fun
interactive
little.
loading screen.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, Naughty Dog would expand on that idea a little bit with the
Hmm.
seventh generation with Uncharted, but I'll talk
Yep.
more about that later. So, but
Yeah,
yeah, anyway, that was a fun little
yeah. I
trivia
mean,
thing about some games that really pushed the hardware
yeah,
and tried
Naughty
to,
Dog is literally a precursor to getting rid of loading screens.
yeah,
And then later they started using rendering distance as their a lot of games started using rendering distance as a thing.
that's one thing I will say about because in the last episode, I feel like I kind of trash talked Morrowind a little bit, but that's one thing I will say about Morrowind over like Oblivion and Skyrim is Bethesda, like when they made Morrowind, they're still loading areas because sometimes the game will just literally stop you where you're at and say, okay, we're loading in this area, and letting you know because it needs a couple of seconds. And but any if you're like depending on what you're playing on and what PC you're playing on. Of course, I played on Xbox. Um, it most of the time you never bump into that problem. You'll just walk right into the city or walk right into the you don't have to go through some kind or walk right into the house. Well, maybe not so much inside houses, but I feel like it loads faster. Um, but with Oblivion and Skyrim, like every time you walk into, well, not the smaller villages, but into a city and stuff like that, it's like you got to go through this loading screen you're going through. And in some cases in Oblivion, like Cyrodiil is like notorious for like multiple doors you're walking through and stuff like that. And each one of them is a loading screen. It's like
Yeah.
blackout, fade it, fade out, fade back in, and it's not it would be fine if it was very very quick, like a quick little fade out fade in kind of thing, but it's sometimes when you go through multiple doors and it takes like a good I don't know 5-10 seconds, that starts to add up quick and it wears down on that feeling and breaks that but in Morrowind, it like the way they designed that game, I'm not sure what all they did to make all that stuff work. You were That's very rarely ever a problem. Like I said, you just walk right into the city, even the capital city, with Balmora and
Yeah.
also the Vivek. Like as big as that city is, like you're still able to just walk right into it. No loading
Yeah.
screen. So,
Modders really helped Skyrim. Because like one of the mods that I always keep in my load order when I was playing on PC is a mod that literally makes it seamless. It literally, as soon as you open the gates of Whiterun, you see Whiterun as the gates open,
ah, man,
and
that
you
would
just
be
walk
nice.
in. It's
Yeah,
it's an amazing little mod, and
yeah,
the fact that it could easily have been put in,
yeah.
because I mean, people say, people can say, oh, but back then, whatever. No, this mod was pretty early on in the modding community.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're still in the seventh generation when this mod comes
When they
out.
were making it, yeah. Mhm.
It's just Bethesda is known for not thinking things through a lot of times with their games.
Yeah. I feel like
Hence
modern
is
day
why there's so
Bethesda.
many glitches.
Yeah, I feel like modern day Bethesda is notorious for always just doing the quick fix for something. They have
Yep.
a cool idea that they want to do, but then when it becomes a bit too much of a struggle, I feel like they just do some sort of quick fix to
Yep.
get around it. Sort of like what I said, all those loading doors and stuff like that. And, they're like, oh, we want the game to be bigger and we want the city to be bigger, but it's going to slow down the game. So, well, we'll just make a bunch of loading screens, instead of trying to figure out a way around all that. So but anyway, we're about out of time for this episode.
Well,
So,
that wraps up the sixth generation of gaming. Woo. On
yeah, well, maybe we may do some more talking about it in
Ah.
post stuff. There's still other games I'd like to talk about, and we didn't even get into PC games. So,
Okay, honestly, when it comes to PC, it needs to be its own section because throughout his, I mean, PC gaming specifically is way more up there than console. And
they,
there's a lot of things that, yeah, I do because there's games that I've seen that's currently out or it was out, had a while back on PC that has never been done on fucking console, and I haven't seen anyone do it on console still.
yeah,
Like, there's a game I've currently been watching people play uh, on YouTube it was made by two developers. It's a zombie survival game that does way better than any zombie survival game I've ever seen. It's literally two developers. So yeah,
yeah. Well, I like to talk about PC sometimes to these generations because I feel like sometimes the games on PCs get ignored sometimes. So when people talk about generations, but yeah,
it's
anyway,
because PC is basically just one big generation.
I don't know. I don't really see it that way. So
I know a lot of some people actually do. But with that being
yeah.
said, comment, like, subscribe, and all that jazz, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 Ilitat This Kaya You Bend it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait Naya Modu Nayu You Kai Kumat Do you it Do you it Kaya Turkiyu Ikatay Poyait 7 for Italy that is Jaya it you it Jaya Turkey you it Jaya for I Naya Modu Naya you Jaya Kuma do you it Jaya Turkey you it Jaya